Okay, everyone, excited for this session. So, as you know, I am Prachi Jain. So, let me tell you my experience. So, I have a 6+ year experience in the data and analytics field. So, I have expertise in Power BI and now in the Microsoft Fabric as well, in the Azure thing as well. So, I delivered multiple projects related to the domain healthcare, retail, survey analytics with the focus on the data and AI, data and analytics, and my main focus, my interest to do the action insight and the building the scalable and the real-time solutions. So yeah, so that is my intro. So today we are going to discuss the translytical task flow in Power BI. Let me share my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen. So
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, so here we are going to discuss translytical task flow in Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. So what is translytical? What is translytical? So translytical is transactional plus analytical. So what do you mean by transactional? So we have lot of small operations, small transactions we can do, for example, using the card swipe, using the inventory update. What is analytical? In the OLP operations, we have the large query that we are running, like we need to analyze the, I need to check the stocks of the inventory. So we have the transaction data, and on top of that we are doing the analysis. So in the translytical flow, we have the one data set for do both. Like whenever the inventory will be entered, we can immediately see, yeah, these inventory has been added for the particular order. So here in the translytical is a combination of, here we can do the transaction, and in the real time we can see the real time data in the using the real time using the dashboards that is connected with our real time data. So here we are going to discuss what are translytical task flow and why we need to care this. So before the traditional before this translytical task flow, what we have? We have the traditional BI. What do you mean by traditional BI here? In the traditional BI, in the BI, here I am talking about the BI business intelligence in terms of the Microsoft, the Power BI. In the Power BI, for the BI, we have only view only mode. We can only analyze data. We can just do the view. We cannot take any action. Suppose we have the inventory and I want to send the alert. So, or there is a one there is a record where I would like to provide the discount. I cannot take any actions. Only the only the view mode. For the action, maybe what we need to do, we need to create the separate, we need to integrate any other application in our existing Power BI environment, either integrate the Power Apps or the separate any application, any application for the task. For example, here the requirement will be, we have the data, and in the data I want to add the inventory. I want to send the like if suppose particular the inventory level is down below that threshold, I want to send the alert to that person, or edit the inventory. If there is a requirement, edit some information by the manager or by some higher authority or someone, I cannot directly integrate in the Power BI. So to take the action for that, either I need to create any external app, I need to embed any external application, that can be any input form that will take my inputs and feed in the data that currently I am seeing. So earlier we can do using the, if we can use the Power Automate to provide the input form. We can use the Power Apps to provide the input forms that allow to add it, whatever will be our requirement. Using that we can edit the data and do the right back. Or like in the Power BI, we can embed the Power Apps, or there can be the external application, or can say the custom visual as well that provide the inline write option to the data. But there was not a native write back feature in the Power BI before this, like the in the traditional BI. So what was happening, because we are using the other options, so those other option, either Power BI or the any other custom visual we are using to provide the write back functionality, we can that have the separate cost, the separate maintenance for that. We have a separate licensing for that for the Power Apps as well, and the Power Automate as well based on the requirement. We have a separate license, and in that also we have a like license, also we have a license in terms of the different connector. If we are using the premium connector, so the cost will be based on that one. And like completely the separate application, we need to take care of everything, maintenance, complexity, implementation also. Like I am the BI developer. If I need to embed that Power Apps application, maybe I need to learn the Power A if that is not my expertise, or I need someone who are expertise in Power Apps who can build this Power Apps for me so that I can embed. So yeah, those the maintenance thing, or if I'm not expertise, needed the other developer, the Power Apps developer to do this thing. So this was when we are using the traditional BI. But now in the
So,
Translytical
Prachi, there
Task
is a
Flow,
question or a comment,
yeah,
okay? It says,
yeah,
you,
yeah,
Matilda is saying that you can do it in a view mode in PBI. You
yes,
create a metric, so you create a metric in PBI and create alert on top of this metric.
yes, we can.
Okay, I'll go on mute again.
Sure. So I want to ask the question here, like cross question on the question, Matilda. So, like here, what you are asking, you here you are talking about data activator, like creating alert on top of this. So, uh, okay, okay,
She's confirming, she's not asking. Okay, that's
okay,
good.
yeah,
Thank you, Matilda, for engaging. Appreciate that.
yeah. So in the translytical task flow, so here what we can do, like in the Power BI earlier, we cannot do any write back. We can just view the analysis that we created. Here, in using the Translytical Task Flow, we can enable the native write back functionality. Write back means we can write to our data in the real time. If I want to change any update in my data in the real time, we can update the data in the real time. So here we can earlier we can just see like whatever analysis we draw in the Power BI, we can just analyze and just exit. Now what we can do, we can analyze, we can take the action. Suppose for example we have the data, sales data, and we put the discount currently the 10%, but now I am thinking yeah, discount now because this is a special season, this is the, you can say the Easter season is coming, so we want to provide the higher discount, the 20% discount for the particular product. So in that we can create in the Power BI itself the form related to that, so that yeah, for the particular product, if someone want to update the discount, they can directly uh, add it that right back to the particular product discount from that translated from that input screen also, that we have created using this translytical task flow, and then the data immediately reflect in the database, and immediately we can see the changes in our report. So here, like using the translytical task flow, what we can do here, there are a lot of the significant important thing will be there. Here the trigger investigation we can do, as I mentioned the profit example, I the profit percent, if I want to update, we can update the pricing model, we can adjust the inventory also if someone want to. We can send the custom personalization communication as well to customers. Suppose uh, like I want to create some approval process as well, that earlier that in the existing system also currently also, or before the translytical task flow, we are using for that power automate, power s to create the flow. So using that also, not that level, but yeah, at beginning we can create the workflow as well for the approval. Yeah, whenever someone made the changes, before actual implement the actual reflecting that changes, it will be sent to the manager. We can set up the flow, then manager will approve. After that we can see the changes. So yeah, so now why this is revolutionary? Because here we can immediately, like, we can analyze and act. So this is very fast response time. Here we are not doing the context switching. Like, why it will reduce the context switching? Because we are in the Power BI ecosystem only, or can say the big Microsoft, because now Power BI in the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem. So now we are in the Microsoft Fabric and Power BI ecosystem only. We are not switching to the, yeah, switching to the Power Apps, or it is going to the Azure SQL database. If we were using earlier, if you are using the database for the write back as Azure SQL database. So this thing will reduce the context switching. And here we can, like, this will reduce the gap. The performance will be fast, and the data will be reflect very quick, like in real time. Earlier we were using, like, here the benefit is two. Earlier we were, yeah, earlier in the Power Apps, if we do this write back using the other app. If suppose for the write back thing, I created one form in the Power Apps, and that is connected with my database, I do the write back. At that layer, what was happening? I use three applications for that. You can say the Power Apps for the form, Power Automate to do the write back, the flow that will write, that will take the input from my Power Apps form, then write back to my database. There will be the flow in the Power Automate. Then that in and it will store the data in my Azure SQL database, and then it will reflect in my report. To reflect in my report also, I need to create the flow in Power Automate to refresh the data set. But now with this feature, if we are using the Microsoft Fabric, we can use the direct link. So immediately whenever, and our database, the data store will be inside Fabric only, Microsoft Fabric SQL database. So changes will be reflected immediately. Here we don't need to create any separate Power Automate flow for that. Like the two flow, as I mentioned, there can be many. It depend uh, complexity of your application, but the mainly the two flow to the write back and to refresh the data set earlier. But now we don't need to create any flow in the Power Automate. So just that's why it will reduce the context switch. So here the six game changing capability what we have, as we can modify the existing record. Like if particular record I want to add it, the profit percent, or any value, whatever we think, yeah, these or you can say the threshold also. Like maybe we have a record where we have a threshold. Suppose we have a sensor data, and in the winter we have a different temperature threshold, so that we want to trigger, yeah, if this temperature is this, we need to take some actions. So that also, if we want, we can update the existing record. There will be the requirement. We can add the context in the real time. We can annotate the data. If someone want to add the comments, whatever records was there, we can provide the section so that they can write their comments over there. Dynamic notification we can provide using this. So like here, based on the requirement, the the currently the basic thing we can do, lot of things we can do. We can create complete the custom automation thing that we were doing in the Power Apps, that we can do using the Translytical Task Flow also. But yeah, definitely, as this is at initial stage, because this was introduced near May or June 2025 only. So this have maybe have some limitation, but going forward, like for a small task, for the requirement where we don't need the big data, big flow, we can use that flow as well. Then, like, to do this, for the prerequisite will be, we we should have the fabric capacity, or we can have the fabric purchase capacity, paid capacity. The F2 capacity minimum is required, or we can start with the fabric trial capacity as well. I will show you the demo in that I use the trial capacity only, and it will work. And the SQL tenant, also the SQL database also should be enabled in the tenant and the required permission, because uh, whenever Microsoft launch some features that is in the preview, so we need to forcefully enable those feature in the Power BI report as well. If suppose Microsoft introduce any new new visual or any permission, that if those are in the preview, we need to enable that from the reporting settings. If and the other permission also in the Microsoft Fabric / Power BI admin portal, there also we need to enable some permission to do that thing. Because here I mentioned the Fabric SQL database enable for tenant, because at if that is in the preview, so by default it might not be enabled in your tenant, so you need to ask your tenant and admin to enable that so that you can use that. Then to implement the translytical task flow, whatever what will be the needed. So here, as I mentioned, like, we need to write back the data. So for that, we need the data location. We need to set up the data infrastructure where we are storing the data. The second thing here, to do this, to achieve this, the write back, the main core is the data function. We will write the data function so that it ingests. So earlier in the traditional system, or in the you can say the existing, if we are going with the Microsoft ecosystem only, we are using the Power Apps and Power Automate. We are creating the flow, Power App, Power Automate flow. That is help to take the input from Power Apps and insert in the Azure SQL database. In the Translytical Task Flow, we will be creating the user data function to to if we want to return some result, the select query, the select thing, or the insert logic, whatever logic, the business logic, we will define in the user data function. And the third will be our visual data. In this, the function that we created to perform the action, that we will integrate in our Power BI report.
Is it okay to say that this kind of looks like an event hub in Fabric?
Event hub and Fabric, not
So that
exactly.
also is constantly looking at both the
Correct.
transactions and then it feeds it to some sort of an analytical place, right?
Yes, but it will not, because the event hub is just streaming, like whatever the real time data is streaming, it is capturing that one. Correct?
That's it, right? Okay.
Yeah, because it
Okay.
is event hub is capturing the stream data, but here this will be used in the business requirement where we need to add it. Like this, the best use case will be the, you can say, the sensor. Like if we have the IoT device we install in multiple stations, and we need to adjust the threshold based on the different season. Like in winter we need to adjust the threshold, the temperature we need to threshold, or based on the, if we use the sensor device in the freezer, so based on the whatever item was inside, we need to adjust the temper temperature threshold. So that thing we can do using that. Like the complete whatever will be the requirement, that the minor changes, instead of going back to the developer, yeah, developer or data engineer, we need this data, this not this data, the minor updation in the data we want we want. So instead of going to that, we can create that data updation, data modification thing, and the Power BI in the using the combination of Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. So they can edit the particular record or whatever they want. Well, like whatever basically the flow was created for that. So here I am going to show you very simple example of how we can write back. Yeah, so as I mentioned you, like here the three parts will be the data infrastructure, the second is the user data function, and the user data function we are going to integrate with the Power BI report. And before that, as I mentioned, we need to enable the preview feature. So preview feature, as you know, in the Power BI, we can enable using the Power BI option and settings and options. In the preview features, we need to enable the translytical task flow feature because currently this feature is in the preview. We need to enable this one. And for the input function, because in the slide in the Power BI there was, before this there was no native default you can say the visual, it was not there. Like there is no visual that can take the input, but now we have the text slicer visual that we are going to use in our demo. So that we need to make sure that is enable this one, the text slicer visual, and the translytical task flow slices. So these two translytical task flow, this is the feature that need to be enabled so that we can bind our user data function that we are going to create in Microsoft Fabric, that we can bind in the current report. So yeah, so those functions, those features are already enabled. And now let me go to the Microsoft Fabric. So in the Microsoft Fabric, we have in the Microsoft Fabric, we already have the SQL. I already created the SQL DB. So this we can normally create using the, if you are aware about the Microsoft Fabric, we can create the new item. And here what we created the SQL DB. There is the SQL database. This was the Fabric SQL database. So we created this one. So this is our SQL database that we created in the Fabric, and that here we define our table. So here for this example, I created simple user table where we will have the user ID and the user email. So this table, the SQL database, we created the table also, we create the schema for the table also we created. And so yeah, the SQL database we created. The next will be our user data, the data function. So how we can create the user data function. So in the Fabric environment in the workspace, go to the new item, and here we can search the data function. So using the user data function, we can create the function. Yeah, so this is the by default screen. When we just click on the new function here, we can create the new function.
And the function would essentially mean whatever, like a user defined function that we have in SQL or
Uh,
even in DAX, right? For that matter.
yeah, kind of similar. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
as in the SQL also, that will contain the rules. Here also we will going to write whatever functionality we want to have. So yeah, so here we can define the business logic that we want to perform. And like in the like here as if you don't know the code, like if you are not familiar with this the Python, you can write in the SQL as well. And Microsoft provide the sample input as well. Like if you see here, I go to the edit and the insert sample, we have these options. These are our database option from like where we want to insert our sample, the warehouse, lakehouse, SQL. So here you can see we can write the multiple row, we can write the simple row. So if we can click over there, so the code will be automated, code will be automatically generated and we can edit the code as per our requirement. So this is the good to have. And once we we write the business logic here, we can publish that function and this function will be visible in our then this function will be available to use the logic that it will do. So now let me show you in the, yeah, this is the function here we will create. And in the Power BI, the third thing was the like once we create the user function in the Power BI, how we will integrate that function with this Power BI. So here, if you see, like here, I'm just showing you the basic example, just how the write back is, write back does the write back is really performing in the real time. I'm just showing you the basic example, but this example we can leverage this based on our real requirement wherever we will be needed. So here, if you see what I use the text slicer. This is the new new visual that is provided by that is added by Microsoft. Before that, it was not there, and this new visual have using this new visual we can take the input, whatever input value will be filled, we can capture that input value and send to our database to write that value in the database. So this is just the text slicer, and in the setting I just enable the setting, like not enable any setting. I just yeah, just put the placeholder, like nothing, or we can enable, like for the visual representation we can play with the settings, but this new visual input will be captured by our data function. How, where we will integrate the data function? For that, we just simply insert the button, the simple button. Earlier also we were using the blank button, just added the simple blank button. But the twist is here now in the action, we have earlier we don't have that option, but now we have the option to call the data function. So here we can call the data function, and here we can see whatever data function was unable for us, we can choose that data function. So for this, the data function is this, so we can connect with the data function, and this data function will perform whatever was the action we have written there. So let me show you now the data function that we have written for this. So this is the data function. As you here see that this is the simple example to grab that ID and just store that ID in the database. And we added some logic there as the rule, constant rule as well, to check the same user should not be entered twice. So in the logic, I'm explaining the logic in simple terms. So as I mentioned, this is the user data function. So first, with this data function, we need to connect with the database. As we know, we need to connect with the database. So we connected with this our SQL database that we have. So this connection we need to make. So this we already set up. If we want to do the warehouse, we can connect with the warehouse. But here we are picking the SQL database. So we made the connection already. Then here, because this is the user email ID, we are taking the input as a, so we want to ensure everyone is filling the email ID correctly, not just the username. So the email ID should contain the @ symbol as well. So here we are just added the role to validate the email patterns. And then the next, we are just connecting with the SQL. We are connecting with our database system, and then based on the rule. Here we are checking if the user is already exist, it will not, the data should not be ingested in our system. If the it will throw the error like this. If the data is not already there, then it will insert the value in our database. So this is the just the simple logic we have written here, and this will perform. So here, as in the submit button, we already call the function. So let enter any input. So if you see, I entered the input. Before this, the button was disabled because we set up the settings like this. This will, if nothing is input, then it will be disabled. As we entered the value, now this is activated and this is connected with data function. If I if we click on the submit, so it will store the data in the database if this match the criteria. But if you see, the request was submit, but we got the message the email ID is invalid. We need to validate the email ID. The proper example is this. So we need to enter the data in this format, the constant that we applied for this specific scenario. So let's put the email ID, and let me show you. Before that, we don't have anything in the table. There is no record access. So now let me enter this. The user is created successfully. So now let me see. Yeah. So the record has been ingested in my data immediately in the real time. Why this is reflected immediately? Because I connected with my data in a direct link. Firstly, I connected the data model, the semantic model that I created is connected as a direct link. And the second thing is the function, we have the option, should I need to refresh the report after the successful outcome? So it immediately reflect. So here I don't need to create any additional, you can say additional separate application, or like I don't need any separate application to refresh my data. For example, the Power Automate to refresh the Power Base semantic model earlier we were using. Like currently also depend on the scenario if we were going with a different approach. So here I don't need to create anything. It's just the Power BI, Microsoft Fabric, nothing else. And yeah, inside that Microsoft Fabric, we were using the Fabric SQL database user data functions. So we can, yeah, we can see. And if I enter the same value again. Like the form constant is correct, but I am typing the same value again. So if you see, I feed the value in the capital test. The T is capital in the test, but it is showing me the user is already exist. We cannot create. So this way we can use the write back, the native write back functionality, and this we can leverage based on the requirement. So quickly show you the one thing I did, like that was not
That's where you're planning to go, Prachi?
yes.
No?
I want to go, but due to the visa, I was very excited to go in the Europe conference, but due to the visa, I was not able to go. So that's why I was during that time I was creating this using this translytical
Content.
task flow to create, yeah, add the agenda. So So this type of thing, like as I mentioned, based on the requirement only you can create. Like here I want to, what I was trying to create, I want to instead of the separate application, the like we can use the scheduler or the agenda thing, and for the meeting as well, we are using the external tool or the inbuilt we can add on other the external apps in that. So here if you see, I just like we can add, edit or delete. So I provided I want to this information in my agenda, so I set up in the way. So I create the UI in a way so it looks like this is a form, but in the back end we use the text slicer. We did not use the, if in terms of the, in the journal terms where we are creating the forms, the input label, the label, the input box. So but here basically this is the text box, but we organize this in a way, this, so that it looks like this is a form, and we can select and give the instruction as well so that user can do, and we can select, and this need to be added in our agenda. So based on the requirement, as I mentioned, we can create a different flow. uh, like we can create, if we want to edit that as well. Suppose the user requirement will be, yeah, we need to edit this, suppose the, we need to, the speaker, here this is the speaker list, so we need to add one more the one more koi speaker will be there, so we want to add the information here. So that type of information we can select, and we can create the UI based on that, and that immediately it will write in our database, and in the real time it will reflect in the report. So based on the different scenario, we can show that. And as I mentioned in like during the use cases, then when we were discussing the slide. So here we can create the approval flow as well. Suppose there will be the requirement if I need to create the flow. Suppose, yeah, I am thinking the discount should be for that inventory in the this season, that should be 20%. So I made the changes, but that should be reflected in the database once this will be approval by my manager. So I will, yeah, I create the flow to take my discount value that I want to update for the particular project I mention, and in the user data function we write the code in a way so that, yeah, it will not ingest directly in the database until it is approved by my manager. So we can notify to the manager over the teams, we can integrate the teams as well, or to the outlook as well. So once they will approve the flow, then the data should be ingested. So different kind of scenario we can implement using that, like where the business is small, they don't have such big requirement to do this, that we can achieve using this. And maybe in the next couple of months, or in the coming months, or like maybe in the next year, this functionality we can, this will exactly do what we can achieve using the power apps. Because currently here we have the limitation, we cannot embed this, like while embedding this translytical task flow, it will not work. Like it will not behave, the functionality will not work. So if we have the ISV application, we are, our users are consuming the report using the using embedding in a, like we are not sharing the Power BI portal. They are viewing the report. If this we embedded in our site, so that this will not work, like this particular translytical task flow. But maybe in coming future it will work, and a lot of things related to the deployment. So those are maybe once currently, as you see, this feature is in the preview only, the translytical task flow. So maybe in future months when this will be the journal available, there will be the lost of option will be available there as well. Because when it was launched, we can only write the single value, but now we can write the multi value as well, and the other features as well. Microsoft updated. Oh, yeah. So that's it from my end. If you have any questions, you can. Yeah. So the key resources I take from the Microsoft only, Microsoft sites only, the official announcement related to that. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Like, do you know Microsoft Fabric? Because I started the Microsoft Fabric. I'm not sure the audience know, and I did not explain the Microsoft Fabric.
It's pretty popular here. Let me stop the recording at least for now, right?
Sure,
Unless
sure.
people want to, if you want to discuss, we can do it after I stop recording. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prachi. This was really great.